Hello, everyone. We're back, but it's two different people with me, which is probably going to be the regular basis for this because, unfortunately, I've had to let someone go. Blue Dragon 5 will no longer be joining me, just because of personal reasons, guys. It's nothing to do with his work or anything on the show. Go subscribe to him. I really do still pretty much like the guy. It's just personal things that have happened behind the scenes have sort of forced me to change things up. But as far as Mr. E goes, as far as I'm concerned, he is welcome back anytime he wants to join us. So if Mr. E happens to hear this, feel free to send me a message and I will put you back in the rotation. Okay. But starting things off, I'm, of course, Magpie, and I'm joined by the very enthusiastic man himself about superheroes, the superhero enthusiast, Alex.
Hello, everyone.
And I have no idea how else to introduce this guy, but the man himself, Steve Baxi. Thank you for joining us, Steve.
It's not who I am in real life. It's my videos that define me.
Well, so we're here to talk about remakes and reboots, and we're obviously going to talk a little bit about some of the reboots we've got recently and some others we've got. The thing is, this we found out just before this. We were doing some quick research. I'm a popular guy, apparently. The thing that we found about this kind of started off in the horror world with some other lesser-known horror movies. But the thing that I think, when I think reboot, I think Batman Begins. Because that was kind of the first one to really do it. I mean, you could say 89 was, but that was still at a time when people heard Batman, they thought Adam West. I mean, Dark Knight Returns kind of sort of set the stage for 89, I guess, in some ways. But I guess in popular culture at the time, because I was only like 4 years old at the time, so I can barely remember this. When I thought Batman at that time, I thought Adam West. But then, after it came out on video, I saw 89, and it was like my image of Batman completely changed. So, yeah. I guess we can kind of talk 89, we can kind of talk Begins, but yeah.
89, I think, is sort of a reboot of Batman, of the image of Batman in popular culture. But I think, there wasn't really, I guess, like a movie franchise for Batman going on before that. You had the serials in the 1940s, and the Adam West Show had a movie, but there wasn't really anything before that. So, yeah, I think Begins is really like the reboot, and it's one that's sort of sparked all these somewhat grittier, more adult, more grounded sort of reboots of the modern day. Mm. It's been very influential.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, I think before we had Begins, we didn't exactly have a paradigm of any kind. We just sort of were doing things, seeing what stuck. And sure, every decade kind of has their definitive iconic status or what films look like. But when you get to Batman Begins and Casino Royale around the same time, pretty much every superhero movie started following the same format, and then other franchises thought if you could get out of Batman and Robin and make Batman Begins, then why don't we try the same thing? And importantly, most of the early reboots we got were of series that had really bad final chapters.
True.
Like before Casino Royale, we had Die Another Day, which I still think is the worst James Bond film ever made.
I'm kind of like, I didn't particularly hate that because I kind of like Pierce Brosnan as Bond, but I think there was definitely problems with that movie. I don't think it was the greatest. I still think Live and Let Die is a terrible James Bond movie. I just think anytime you bring voodoo into a movie, it loses it for me. I'm just not a big fan of
Don't
voodoo.
knock Temple of Doom, damn it.
You know, I've still never seen Temple of Doom. I've seen
What?
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I've seen Last Crusade, and I've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark. I haven't seen Temple of Doom.
Well, even if Temple of the Doom is the worst, it's still leagues above Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
yeah, just by default.
Yeah. I actually really like Temple of Doom, but, you know.
I haven't seen it, so I'm not going to make a judgment on it here. I've got the box set, so sooner or later I'll have to watch it.
Well, here's a question. Do you think rather than make Indiana Jones 6, should they just reboot the franchise?
Yes.
See, now, there's a problem there. When I think Indiana Jones, I think Harrison Ford.
And I think that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The reason you should probably reboot it is to save the concept of Indiana Jones, not necessarily the image of the actor.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the problem with, I guess, Live and Let Die, or some of the early Roger Moore movies, is that people were still thinking Sean Connery. And after we got into this rotation of Bond will always be a different actor, it became about the character. Indiana Jones kind of needs the same thing. Because you have to admit with, what's it called, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they had so many moments where they were just kind of trying to recapture the same charisma Harrison Ford used to have, and it just fell flat. They weren't making a character piece. They were making, hey, look, everybody, Harrison Ford is back, kind of thing.
Yeah, remember this thing that you liked from the 80s?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, it was the last one was in the 90s, but yeah.
Oh, was it?
I'm pretty sure.
Did Last Crusade come out 91?
To Google.
Yes.
Yeah, there. Damn.
I always assumed that the franchise went through the 80s.
Yeah, I think, though, that the last one was like 91, 92 or something. Like, I'm not saying it was, like, dead on.
Oh, it was 89, actually.
Oh, 89. So,
they're vindicated.
Damn it, I'm wrong on my own show.
You were close, though.
We need to reboot you. But
the channel itself has kind of gone through a reboot, so it's all kind of...
Everything's new and fresh. This is the all-new Confidential Fan Guild. But, I mean, we saw, I guess, Indiana Jones does have expanded universe stuff. I mean, there are the books, but there's also the Young Indiana Jones TV show that had Sean Patrick Flannery as the character, and I thought he did a good job in that.
Yeah. Is he still acting?
I think so. I don't think he's been in much, but I think the last thing he was in was like Boondock Saints or something.
Oh, well, Boondock Saints was a little while ago at this point, so.
Yeah, but I think they made a sequel to that, so.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, they did, and it was awesome.
Anyway,
watch the second one.
Yeah, I don't know. Depending on what age he is, he might actually be not that bad of a fit. But yeah, we would need somebody, and I think if we could get like a rotating actor in there, that could breathe new life into that franchise, and because I want to see more fun, 1930s, 40s adventures of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I guess case in point, the new Ghostbuster film is apparently going to be a reboot, which I think is a genius move because we don't have to save the glory days. We just have to redefine them for a new generation. That's what makes things last, right? Like, we're not playing in the same continuity in comic books that we were in the 1940s. We're just playing with the same archetypes.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the interesting thing is, like, we as a species have been telling the same stories since, we killed woolly mammoths and ate them around a fire.
Yeah,
they've just kind of evolved and grown. And that's kind of where I come down on reboots is I'm okay with it because we've constantly been, telling the same stories over and over again. And that's fine. But at the same time, I think things are a little bit different today because we have recorded media. Like, we have the written word, we have movies. I can pop in a DVD and watch a movie from, the beginning of cinema. And because we have those old versions of the same stories available, I think reboots do have to redefine things for the new era. They have to be sufficiently different as to warrant their own existence. Otherwise, it's not like with just storytelling around a campfire where, I have to get somebody to tell the same story over again and tell it exactly the same way. Like, it doesn't work like that. And, with recorded media, I can see the exact same thing over and over again.
I think, though, a change of tone sometimes can be a good idea. Like, I really like the Amazing Spider-Man, the first one. And I like the tone that they were using in that film. I know that there are a lot of people, like even you enthusiasts, have problems with that film. But I really thought, okay, what's the one thing you can kind of change about Spider-Man? I thought going in a slightly darker tone was a good idea. I think what it seems like they're doing with the universe, good or bad, at least it's going to differentiate itself enough from the first trilogy. Because you look at that first movie and there is problems with it. Like, granted, when it came out, it was like, ooh, Spider-Man's on screen, and I think that was good. But I don't think that first one holds up as well as people think it does. Well, yeah, or wanted to. Yeah, that's probably the best way to say it.
Yeah,
my problem is with
film is.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Steve.
No, you're good.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, my problem with The Amazing Spider-Man was less the approach and more just it's a film that, we know huge chunks of that movie were cut out of it. And so the film that I think they were trying to make originally would have been something even more different, but the kind of very highly edited film that we ended up getting was more like the first Raimi movie, probably than they originally intended. I do think there are some weaker parts in that movie aside from it, but overall, I like the approach.
I think people should, if there are people out there, check out the deleted scenes from that, and someone should definitely make a fan edit of that film, because the main problem I see with it is that the lizard isn't as well defined or fleshed out as much as I think fans wanted him to be.
And it was a crime that deleted that paralleling scene where Kirk Connors is talking to his son the way Pete's dad was talking to him at the opening of the film.
Yeah.
Just little things like that would have completely changed how people see that movie.
And what's the actor's name? Sorry.
Kirk Connors?
Ray Siphons?
Yeah, the Kirk Connors. Yeah, he's a great actor. And picking him is awesome. I saw him in something called Danny Deck Chair. It was one of the first things I saw him in. And he tore it up in that. Like, he's really funny in that, within that film. But there is a serious underlining tone throughout that film. But there's other things. I saw him in Elementary recently. That's something else we should talk about. That's and it's a shame that he really didn't get to show his acting prowess as much as he should. It's almost as much of a crime as Thor 2 with
Malekith and Eccleston.
Yeah.
And Eccleston was really excited about that role too. So
yeah.
We kind of had a similar thing. I know this wasn't a reboot, but with Iron Man 2 and Mickey Rourke, in that, because he got a lot of his stuff cut out as well. But this is maybe a whole other podcast on villains. Movies.
Well, I guess to really back into reboots, maybe we should talk about what exactly warrants a reboot. Because regardless of how much better the Amazing Spider-Man's direction is from Spider-Man 3 and what would have been Spider-Man 4, it was still a reboot after a 2007 movie, which is only 4 years.
Well, you got to remember, too, that was made out of necessity, because otherwise they would have lost the rights to the franchise.
That's true, but at the same time, what does it say about a studio or just a culture that says, we messed up once, let's just start all the way over again?
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, we stuffed up one time. We got to have ourselves.
Yeah,
Well,
because like with Batman, he was on a streak of 3 really poorly reviewed movies, so it made sense to reboot him with Batman Begins. And I guess same with The Punisher, same with horror movies and Planet of the Apes and stuff like that. But with Spider-Man, you could have just made a really good Spider-Man 4 and had people forget about Spider-Man 3.
Mm-hmm. I
there's
agree.
a lot of. I still say there's a lot of problems with that movie. I think the problem is too that people are sort of got this thing in their head that every franchise has to be a trilogy. Like
Yeah, that's
you get to
annoying.
the third, you get to a third movie, and then people expect, oh, it's over. But then they see a 4, and they're like, why are they making another one? Which
Yeah, not everything
really,
is Star Wars. God damn it!
well, it's like, why are they making another one? Sorry, that's
Because you bought a ticket to the last one. That's why they're making more.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people have got it in their head though. That's the main reason for it. Is like after 3, we've got to reboot the franchise. That's the thing. I
But
think
I
it is.
mean, I think too, though, we do have to factor time into this. And while it may, not take like a full decade between reboots, it does take basically a full decade if you're doing a trilogy between the first movie and the third movie-ish. And that's like, kind of like half a generation of people that,
True.
are not growing up with the thing. So, if we are talking about redefining things for new era and we do live in accelerating times, maybe to some degree it is warranted if they are able to capture something new in there.
Yeah.
But I guess my problem with that is that we aren't letting any of these things sit and have a history or have implications. Like we don't. The whole idea of a cult classic is kind of gone at this point, is it not? Because nothing is coming out, getting bad reviews, and then over time building up its own audience. We start it over again.
Yeah. I kind of think that there is still some cult classics out there. I mean, you look at the movie The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That was
Bad.
that's yeah, but there are people out there that actually like it, myself included. Ian has said he still likes that movie, but he doesn't know why.
Right.
For those out there, that's Sid Part 2. Um, yeah, and I think that kind of warrants a reboot. Only
Well, a
problem is,
readaptation.
yeah. I think that's kind of got this cult status behind it. There's various other things that do. It's just they're probably not talked about as much as people want them to be. I think there's still a lot of things out there that should be like, well, let's try this again. Like older stuff maybe, but I see Steve's thing though to a degree. But I still think that there's stuff out there that hasn't been rebooted or remade in a way that
I just feel like we're
perhaps
hampering history or perspective a little bit because when Spider-Man 2 came out, it was considered the best superhero film ever made because, to be fair, even though I don't like it, it's still a really good movie. And I don't hear people talking about it anymore. At least nowhere near as much as they should be. Like, they just discount the Raimi trilogy as 3 really bad movies in a row, which is why we have Amazing Spider-Man. And that's not wholly true.
I think, though, time does have a factor on that to a degree. I think people have had a chance to sit back and really look at those films, and I think less to a degree with this. They come off a bit campy to a degree.
Maybe so.
That's fair. I think part of it too is just, especially with superhero movies, the approach has changed so much since the early 2000s and the beginning of this kind of modern wave of superhero movies. And really, I mean, that kind of goes back to the beginning of this Batman Begins. That was really the thing. That was really the catalyst that changed the approach. But I think too, it just things maybe are really good at the period that they come out, but they just don't have kind of a universal or a timeless feel. Like, things can be very much, of the zeitgeist, but not last beyond that.
I think too the Spider-Man film, the Raimi trilogy hasn't had a chance to really settle in to be put in that. I think if you give it another 5 or 10 years, that people will go back and go, "Oh, these look quite good." I don't know why people aren't talking about these as much as they should be. Sometimes you might have that lull period where people don't talk about them as much, and then.
But I think maybe what Steve's saying is because we keep getting reboots, people are ignoring the older franchises.
Yeah, I think to a degree.
And it's a problem because we're rebooting things so soon. Like, we had the Raimi trilogy, then 4 years later we have The Amazing Spider-Man, and that's going to be most likely a trilogy, if not 4 movies. And then 2007 we had the new Ninja Turtles movie. And instead of working on a sequel, we're going to reboot it again. And then in between this reboot and the last film, we had like a TV show that was rebooted constantly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to leave people and make them want the thing again. Like, the thing that comes to mind for me is Star Trek, because that went off the air in the late 60s and didn't come back again until the late 80s. And there were a lot of...
Actually...
Well, I mean, there were the movies, but I mean, like, on TV.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, that franchise did get burnt out on TV, and I think rather than, after Star Trek Voyager jumping right into Enterprise, like, those shows were released basically back to back. They should have waited a few years to make people want Star Trek again.
I think people were wanting Star Trek again in 2009, but I think they needed a TV show more than a movie, especially that.
I argue that.
But I think maybe the thing too with Star Trek is, like, when TNG started, that show was terrible, and if you do give people time to build up their desire for the thing again, they're maybe more willing to overlook some hiccups in the beginning for the thing to get settled and let the franchise actually continue on.
I think
part
and
of
not
what
need to reboot it again.
Yeah, I think part of what happened with the culture is that because we're used to getting things so quickly, we're not giving anything a chance anymore. Like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's only been half a season, and I know I've also been criticizing it, it's not going fast enough, but it's only had half a season. We shouldn't expect things to pick up right away really quickly and then complain when they go off the air really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Seinfeld, that's one of the most popular sitcoms ever. It didn't really get popular until like the 3rd or the 4th season, but most shows nowadays, if they weren't popular in the first 2, they'd be canceled.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're not giving anything a chance. Like, Angel Season 4 is really bad, but because they gave it a chance with Season 5, that ended up being the best season of the show.
Yeah. I think Joss so saw the flaws in that.
But what reboots can you guys think of that are actually really stellar? Like, the one that came to mind for me was actually the Maltese Falcon. And I know that's not sort of technically a reboot, but I mean, it is sort of it's the 3rd in a series of adaptations of a novel.
I think
it took like 10 years to get it right. And that movie is considered a classic.
I think that's more of a remake than a reboot, if you...
Well, I guess it's because it's based on source material. You can constitute it as a reboot. But yeah, that is definitely one of the best films ever made.
I haven't seen that in ages, so I wouldn't...
Well, it's weird, too, because like the first one was done seriously, the 1931 Maltese Falcon. I think the second one was called When Satan Met a Lady, which I think was out in 36, maybe. That one did it as like a comedy. So it was sort of like we went from like the serious Batman serials to the campy Adam West show to Dark 89 again with, the 41 Bogart movie. It's kind of funny how I guess things follow that same trajectory.
Yeah, and if you want to see a review of that, maybe go to Alex's channel and you will see that he did a review of that movie.
Well, some guys called Brockman and Slim, they're like detectives. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. You go, Steve. I got to think of one.
As far as a reboot that I think really worked, I would say The Punisher 2004. That might just be because I have it on the brain lately because of the review I did also. But I think out of the 3 Punisher movies, it's still easily the best. And out of any Punisher comic book I've read, which isn't much admittedly, it's still my favorite version of that character. And it works because it's not necessarily a film that draws any attention to the fact that it's rebooting the character or it's trying really hard to market the Skull and make the Punisher a franchise. It's just a story about a guy who went through some bad circumstances and went through an arc. And I think it kind of fits into the same Batman Begins vein of we're not making a superhero movie, we're just making a movie with a main character that happens to be a superhero. And it definitely has that same dark, gritty look that Batman Begins kind of made famous.
Mm-hmm. I'm admittedly somewhat of a defender of Warzone, but
I don't think Warzone's terrible.
No, it's a movie that's deliberately trying to be schlocky. So it's kind of hard to compare the two. But I kind of wonder, like, to what degree. Like, I know there was an '89 Punisher movie, but like, did anybody really remember that existed?
Not that I know of. Apparently,
like,
it was terrible.
Because one of the things we talked about was like, Batman Begins tried to wash the bad taste of Batman and Robin out of people's mouths. Like, did people really remember that movie and go, "Oh, that was terrible. We need a proper Punisher movie"?
Some people remember. I remember my mother was telling me about it. She said, "Oh, there was a '89." I was like, "Oh, really? Was there?" I don't think it was as popular, though. I don't think it stuck in people's minds as much as Batman and Robin did.
Although I think what's funny about that is the Punisher 2004 didn't wash bad taste out of everyone's mouth in '89, but apparently before Warzone was coming out and they were still marketing it, everyone was saying, well, hopefully Warzone washes the bad taste of 2004 out of our mouth.
I don't get what people's problem is with that movie.
I don't either. It's mostly just the continuity people, because that movie does play fast and loose with kind of what the established canon is, and that's fine. But there are those people out there.
All right. I should mention mine. Okay. And this will probably transition our discussion because I think we've discussed Reboot itself as much as we can for the moment. Well, we might come back to this topic too.
There's maybe one more, and that was like the recent Superman one. It divided a lot of people.
Well, then Superman Returns right before that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that was still kind of in continuity, but not really.
It was
sort of like a prequel. Sort of.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be. It's supposed to go 1, 2, then Returns, and then if you really want to count 3 and 4. But I think the problem with Returns is it was kind of dull and boring, and it has nothing to do with throwing action into it. I think the acting was coming off a little bit wooden, and that it wasn't terrible. Like I don't think it's a terrible movie. But I think it's just dull.
I think that's one of those things where, like we talked about before, it did need to be completely reimagined because those old Donner movies just don't kind of jive with what the modern sensibility is.
Yeah.
I mean, they are very much of their time.
And I think the other problem is you've got the Lex Luthor character in that, played by Kevin Spacey. He's trying to be 2 Lexes at the same time, and it's not really working.
That's kind of the problem with that whole film, though, right? Because it's trying really hard to be the rebooted Superman, and it's trying really hard to be Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner Superman, and it can't find its own voice. Yeah. And it also doesn't help that Superman in that movie is not a good person.
Well, yeah, that's the problem for me anyway with both of the attempted reboots within the past decade for Superman is other people in those movies act more heroic than Superman which doesn't make any sense because he as a character is defined by being the most heroic person ever.
Yeah, I think that they tried way too hard to try and make it Dark Knight Superman, and when you really get down to it, Superman is completely different from Batman. You didn't need to. I think you could have gone the whole... You should really go down the Boy Scout route with Superman. You should make him like the most goodest, lack of a better word, goodest person that ever lived in those movies, and like everyone else is sort of jaded and dark, I think, and then he comes around and then he becomes a simple. Yeah, that's the way to do you, Superman.
Well, I mean, we could sort of look at the reboots of Superman in the comic and see that same thing. I mean, John Byrne's Man of Steel in the mid-'80s, that was the scene, was like, Lex Luthor owned Metropolis. Everybody worked for him. Lex Luthor thought he was this, the best guy. He was the top dog. And then Superman shows up and starts inspiring people. And, Lex kind of freaks out and the city of Metropolis changes. And, that reboot really worked for the character.
And I think you put up a really good point. Because what John Byrne did was that Superman isn't the character, Clark Kent is. And all of his sensibilities and the reason people look up to him is because he was raised in a very specific way. He's not Kryptonian, he's not Superman, that's the persona. And Man of Steel tries to have that same message, except in that movie he acts more like Kal-El than he does Clark Kent. Which is probably the problem with him. No one can look up to him because he's not playing the character, really.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the problem, too, is that with the villain in that movie, and that Zod's whole philosophy is Kryptonians are inherently superior. And given that Kal-El in that movie, accepts who he is as a Kryptonian, I mean, there's multiple moments in the movie where he sort of symbolically rejects, Earth values. Because, I mean, he doesn't really get his values in that movie from his Earth parents. He gets them from hologram Jor-El. Because of that, even when he defeats the villain, he's still vindicating the villain's values.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, guys, I know I've done a review on this channel about Man of Steel, and I know Alex has. I'm not sure, Steve, have you done a review on Man of Steel?
I did a general review after my first viewing, and I wish I could take it down because I loved it my first time, and then I agree that it's actually a really bad movie.
Okay.
The opposite of me with Iron Man 3.
Okay. Guys, I just wanted to say, I'm just saying we've done reviews of this movie, so
yeah,
if anyone wants to check those out, we can. If you want, later on we can discuss Man of Steel. But I really want to get my favorite reboot / remake out there, and that's the Three Musketeers, the Disney one from 1993.
Oh. You're speaking to me. I was in love with that movie. I basically wore out the VHS tape. That was good.
Yeah. I think every generation seems to get a lot of those Alexander Dumas movies remade. I'm looking at the list of all the serials and on film. It seems like every 10 years or so, this movie gets remade, and no one seems to get sick of it. Unless you count the 2011 one.
I still haven't seen that. That was the weird steampunk thing, right?
Yeah. Which, by the way, flying ships? Are you kidding me?
I don't have a problem with that as long as the story's good. I think it's a neat way to do something different.
Well, that one really disappointed me because Christoph Waltz was in it, and I thought it was going to be awesome and hilarious and had its own flavor, but it really didn't.
But the thing about it is this movie keeps getting remade, keeps getting redone in different ways. I don't think people are really getting sick of the Three Musketeers. I don't think they're getting. I think Man in the Iron Mask sort of fits in this vein too, because those two stories are kind of linked.
Mm-hmm. Have they done a remake of that since the DiCaprio one?
Well, let me look that up because I actually like the DiCaprio one. I think that from what I know, that's pretty close to. It changes some things.
Apparently there was another one in '88, in '98, I mean. But it wasn't as popular because, of course, DiCaprio.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you have John Malkovich in that, and Jeremy Irons, and
Tim
you know,
Curry
a lot of,
was.
Tim Curry was in the '93 one.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah, he's in the Three Musketeers movie.
I'm getting those two confused.
Yeah, but I mean that one had a great cast too. You had Kiefer Sutherland and Charlie Sheen and Oliver Platt, and you had Tim Curry.
Yeah, Tim Curry's always awesome. Sorry,
he was excellent in that role.
Yeah. But yeah. See, I think it's really weird. Like, do you think something can be remade to death?
I don't know, because, like, those Three Musketeer movies, they always come out and they're always, like, typically, I think, make their money back at least. But there's not, like, Musketeer fever. Like, you don't see kids, dressing up. Well, I did, but, like, hardcore. But you don't see kids, dressing up with the fleur-de-lis and stuff, and, it's not as popular as, say, like, superhero movies. They're not making $1 billion at the box office, so I don't think there's a huge risk of burnout if it's just sort of marginally successful.
And then
that sort of provides
we only
the
get
impetus
Musketeers
for,
like every 5-10 years at a time, if that.
Yeah.
I think every 10 years though you should remake these movies because they're timeless tales, and I really think like after the last Musketeers movie, we do need another one. I've only seen a review of it, and it alone frustrated me. Just because I heard some stuff about it because I originally was going to go see it, but I kept hearing bad things about it. I was just like, oh.
How would you guys classify the Antonio Banderas Zorro movie? Because that's a movie that sort of is a reboot. Like, it's sort of riffing on general Zorro knowledge. It doesn't refer to any specific series or version of that character, but then it's like a new Zorro as well. Like, is that a reboot? Is that a remake? Is that a requel? What is that?
Well, those films are also based off of older Zorro stories, so I guess technically it would be a reboot. But I think the thing we're touching on with Zorro and the Three Musketeers, and maybe even something like every generation getting their own Shakespeare series of films, is that these things are made to last through the decades and through the ages. Like, they're talking about very basic human nature stories. And no matter how far advanced we get in technology, there's certain things about people that these movies are telling us that isn't going to change. So I don't think you could remake any of those to death simply because we're always going to be those people.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now, and you're not going to realize this, but we hadn't had, it looks like, a Zorro movie for nearly more than 10 years after, I guess, there was some animation stuff, but we really hadn't had, there was some other ones. All right, we hadn't had Zorro in quite a while between those, between the Antonio Banderas movie and there was one in 81, I believe, apparently. I don't know how well that did, but I don't.
I think the thing with a lot of these stories too, and like you mentioned Shakespeare, and that's like those stories have already stood the test of time.
Right.
With some of these things like, Spider-Man movies, like they're not classics yet. So like, yeah, to what degree is it warranted?
Well, I guess that we can get into a whole debate about what defines a classic.
Yeah.
There you go. There's another one. Coming soon to the CFG. What defines a classic? And I think though, yeah, some things certain stories that stand the test of time, and I think Man in the Iron Mask, Three Musketeers, and even Zorro to a degree does do that. Plus, I think the other thing with these movies is they're set in a specific time period. And with that, you can remake them as long as, again and again, because all you have to do is dress the set up to make it look like such a...
Yeah, it's a period piece.
Yeah, it's a period piece. I think when it comes to those, you can remake those quite a bit. It's just when you change certain things about it.
Well, Steve and I sort of had this discussion when we talked about essence of character with, like, Robin Hood and King Arthur. Like, can you do those set outside of a medieval time? Robin Hood, apparently you can, because there was, I remember there was this old, like, filmation cartoon, at least here in Canada, called Rocket Robin Hood, and it was like Robin Hood in space. And it's actually pretty cool, but...
There was actually something else like that, something set in the modern day with Robin Hood.
And I guess there are like Camelot 2000 or whatever it is, or 3000, where it is like space knights and stuff.
No, there was this, like I was saying, there was this other series that's set in actual time, in this time. And it was sort of like a kids movie that was around, and yeah, it was kind of like that. It was, and it had the arrow competition and all that in it, and it was really quite good. Yeah.
If I may, what do you guys think of The Christmas Carol? Because that's something that's adapted, I want to say, literally every Christmas.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I've ever went a Christmas without a new version of The Christmas Carol.
I think that's another one, because again, like I was saying before, it's set in a certain time period, and it's a very basic story. There are different versions of it. Like there was that Bill Murray one, it's called Scrooge, that was really quite good, and that was like, I think it's very hard to do that story wrong. I don't think I've seen a terrible version of it. I've seen certain ones that I'm like, that's not that good.
They've even done a version of it that had the Muppets in it. So.
That was amazing.
Yeah. And that was still quite good. I think they did that right. I'm trying to find this movie that I was telling you about. But now, I remember you telling me, Alex, that Robin Hood is like a Justice League type thing. There's Friar Tuck and all them had their own stories at the same time. So
yeah, King Arthur's sort of the same way too, in that like all of the merry men and all of the knights of the Round Table at one point were just all kind of individual heroes in their own myths, and then these stories that we're familiar with in these versions are like these gigantic crossover events that they had back then that like merged all these characters together.
I can't find this thing. Anyway, sorry to end this on such a bad note, but what's a reboot that you saw, or a remake that you saw, that was just terrible?
2006 Pink Panther.
Okay. I haven't seen that, so.
That's the, what's his name, Steve Martin version.
Yeah. I know what it is, I'm just saying I haven't seen it.
Yeah, don't. It's really bad. It takes all the kind of intellectual out of the original Pink Panther and just makes it a really goofy farce with absolutely no internal logic and almost kind of vulgar humor instead of witty humor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I knew you were going to ask that question, so I was mentally preparing for what I was going to say about that really, really bad movie.
Alex?
It's a good question. I don't want to pick on Man of Steel, but yeah, I'm really not a fan of that movie.
Okay, I just know what year this one came out, because, yeah, I think this is probably the worst. It is number one with a bullet from me. Great. Of course you wouldn't tell me which year it came out. Okay. It is the 2004 reboot of the Thunderbirds. This gets so much wrong. Not just from a continuity standpoint. They took this epic franchise and just changed things that made no sense. They made Alan Tracy a kid. And then they essentially, of course, then it becomes such like a kids movie. And that's not what Thunderbirds was. It was like a spy show. I've heard it called that. It's about a bunch of people that are trying to start an organization to save people, and it's just horrible. The effects in it are in it all right. They just change so much that it literally doesn't. It's not Thunderbirds anymore. It's just like the vehicles are there, and there's nothing else. It's like
you're
terrible.
Talking about the Jonathan Frakes directed one, right?
Yeah,
okay.
It's horrible. It's horrible. I watched it and I'm like, what? Oh, why? And it's not like the bigger brothers in it were like much older, like were this much older than Alan Tracy. And Alan's not necessarily my favorite, but I'm like, why? Why? Like, and I don't even think it was cast right. I mean, Vanessa Hudgens is in this movie. Really? Oh.
Here's maybe a somewhat happier question to maybe end this on if we're trying to wrap this up, and that's, what things do you guys want to see rebooted, or think need or require or might, have necessitated a reboot?
There's a couple of things I've brought up many times, but I'll let Steve or you go first if you want.
I mean, go ahead. I'm still kind of think of mine.
All right. Okay. We need a Phantom sequel or reboot. Like, because I'm still okay with Billy Zane if he's up for it to play the Phantom again, because I think he got the character right. I think we do need a Condor Man reboot, because there's something, and as you'll hear me talk about in the commentary that's coming up in May, I will bring that up, because it's a franchise that demands it to be made a franchise out of, because we got one movie and that's it. I just don't think it was promoted right. I think we need a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen reboot, because that's just that has definite possibilities. It does.
I'm gonna say readaptation, because the books. I'm a huge fan of that franchise. Like, the books are amazing.
I'm not saying. I'm saying something closer to the books. I'm not saying direct adaptation of them, because again, what's the point if it's straight off the page like year one? What's the point?
I mean, that's the interesting thing about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, is it's this gigantic pastiche that says, what if all fiction existed in the same universe, and so rather than doing like famous book versions of the characters, you could do like the famous movie versions of the characters. That could be interesting. A different way to do it.
And I think playing up the playing that up, like, and this is the such and such version of this character, and this is such and such version of this character. Like, I know Sherlock isn't in the league, but what a Sherlock Holmes? What about having Benedict Cumberbatch play the classic version of Sherlock Holmes? That might be interesting.
That'd be genius.
And yeah, there is possibilities there. I mean, I still like the original, but I'm just saying, like, I haven't read the books. I'm sure the books are better. Like, I think I think only because it has been so long and the people are so older now that it can't be done. That's why this needs to be rebooted. I think the Tomorrow When the War Began series needs to be rebooted, and I think an American studio really needs to get behind it, and I mean financially, and I mean with distribution. That's it. I don't want their creative hand into it, because the first one, the original one, was done so well. But I still think that movie's still kind of too recent, and it did so well that it frustrates me that it's gone to the point now that we have to reboot it, because, or at least recast and just pick up where they left off, because that is one of the biggest tragedies in film, I think. From a movie standpoint, is that the sequel has been stuck in development hell, and it's worse to me than a Deadpool or anything else. Like, because I know eventually they're going to get made. This, I'm just like, grr. Again, commentary coming on that soon, because that's one of my favorite movies, so I'm definitely doing commentary on that. So you'll hear my frustration and my love for that movie, because I put it at the top of my list every time I do a favorites list. Yeah, it bugs the hell out of me.
I think I kind of got mine, and I don't want to be a hypocrite, because the last time this franchise had a movie was 2007, but it was so bad I don't think anyone noticed. This is actually one of my favorite movies of all time. I want a Highlander reboot.
Oh, cool.
The problem with Highlander was that it came out and it was a really cool sword and sorcery fantasy world. It was really kind of metal in 80s, and it knew it just had to be fun. And it was great because it wasn't violent. Like, you had decapitations, but you never saw it. You know, it was really classy about it. And then someone decided to make Highlander 2 The Quickening, and it became a sci-fi show. And that sort of ruined the franchise. The TV series didn't have the same problem, but the TV series started bad and it ended bad. It was only good in the middle.
I think, Steve, if you pay attention to those movies, the thing about it is, I think they pretty much pave over 2 with the third one. I think
they do.
Yeah, they do. And the third one's not too bad. It's just like, you've got to remember that that's what they're doing. They're like, stuck this one on there. That movie never happened.
Well, yeah, that's sort of the problem, is they didn't know where to go with it. Like, Highlander should have been a one-off thing, and they tried to turn it into a franchise. They made another thing.
There can only be one.
I think the TV series was really good. I think they got what everything was with that, because they didn't make the Highlanders aliens. They were just like, it was a different guy, and I think they did what they needed to do with what was Endgame or whatever.
Yeah.
That one. I think they should have ended it there. I don't think I haven't seen The Source, but I hear that it's not that good.
The Source is probably the second worst. Endgame was pretty good.
Yeah, I think because they did the right thing. They ended Christopher Lambert with that movie. That was really, really quite sad when you think about it.
Yeah.
He did make a cameo in the pilot of Highlander. I haven't seen all the series, but that's definitely something that should be available on DVD.
Is it not?
I don't think so. I haven't heard anything. I think actually it is. I think now it is.
Well, I just watched all of it on, I think it was Netflix. So.
Well, if it's on Netflix, then.
But in 2007, they also made another Highlander movie, because The Source came out in 2007, but also an anime thing called Search for Vengeance, which was actually really, really good. It was probably nearly as good, if not better, than the original film. So it proved you can do Highlander well, even if you try doing it a sci-fi way, because that took place in like 2187 or something like that. It's just you have to realize that it's not a concept that can be gritty or realistic. It's a concept that's meant to be really fun. And I think if you make a Highlander reboot now, it would it wouldn't make money, but it would make a lot of sense, because it would prove that you don't need to remake all these squashbuckling heroes into dark archetypes, like what they want to do with Zorro and turn him into the Dark Knight. Like, things can be just fun, and things can be just absurd, and they can still be good.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of Raven, though? The Highlander the Raven, because that was a spin-off of the series. It only lasted a season, but it was, I think, like from like from what I saw of it, was a really interesting idea, an immortal thief, because that was interesting. I think if we ever get a chance, we should definitely do a Highlander franchise thing.
Oh, we totally should. But yeah, Highlander the Raven. My only issue with that show is that I don't like Amanda as a character, because every time she shows up in the Highlander the series, she's just kind of annoying and she makes problems where there aren't any. So I never got into that show.
Yeah, by the way, it is available on DVD. It's just going to be hard to find now. Because it's not available anymore.
If anybody's up for doing a commentary on the first movie, I'm game for that, because I really do love that movie.
Oh, we've already gotten a request, believe it or not.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I'll talk to you after this. Is there anything more that you want to see rebooted?
I have two things, really, that I can think of. One is just Green Lantern, for obvious reasons. The other is, there was this movie from, I think it's another 1989 movie. Maybe it's 88. Late 80s, early 90s movie. It's a Jean-Claude Van Damme film. It's called Cyborg.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever that popular of a movie. I rewatched it a couple years ago because I saw it on TV when I was a kid and it freaked the hell out of me because it's very, very violent. Very, very violent and graphic and perfect Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. But it's a good film. It's not a great film, but there was so much potential there that wasn't explored. It was just sort of one of these post-apocalyptic sci-fi action movie things. But I just thought the world had so much cool stuff that you could have explored, and just the story could have been better fleshed out. And so I would love to see that film redone or rebooted or remade, whatever you want to call it, with, just modern special effects and stuff, but just kind of fleshing out the story, because I really, really liked it. And I think it's kind of one of those underrated, kind of 80s sci-fi action movies.
Well, I think there's just one last question to leave us off at. What is something that you just want them to leave alone? You don't want to reboot. You just want to leave it there and be left alone.
I have a pretty easy answer to that. I think it's The Crow.
Even though they are remaking it.
Yeah, they're remaking it, and I don't want them to. I don't care so much about the, I guess, direct-to-DVD or TV movies or whatever those sequels were, because they didn't get much critical acclaim. They weren't advertised. It was always kind of just the definitive 94 Crow. But that movie with, like, Brendan Lee being killed on set and his last interview and how much everyone on the production team understood what that film was, I think to reboot it or to remake it kind of hurts it more than anything.
And it loses its thing as being a tribute, in my opinion, to being a tribute to Brendan Lee. Yeah,
like, that film is so much about Brendan Lee as a person and so much about things that the writers went through, and it's just a really emotional project. There's no reason to reboot it unless someone else has a really emotional attachment to it and something bad happened to them. Like, I don't see a reason outside of pure emotion to reboot that.
Yeah. Like, I don't mind them making it somehow it be a spin-off, like, and then do its own thing from that. Like, I think that works if it's good.
Yeah, I mean, like, they've got the comic books and stuff, and those are fine. It's just like that specific story, maybe. Like Eric Draven, don't use that character again.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, that's. Alex, is there anything else? Or Steve, was there anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Alex.
I don't know. Like, I can't really think of anything that I think inherently shouldn't be rebooted. I'm open to it as long as there's, a good story there and they want to do something different and unique. Fuck, even Star Wars 20, 30 years from now, I could be okay with a reboot.
I always thought Star Wars was kind of the James Bondy thing where you could just keep going, and no matter how many weird continuity errors you get, you could still say it's the same guy.
Yeah, I mean, it could work that way. Things kind of went in a different direction, but
it's so weird that I've got a couple. I think it would be impossible to remake or reboot MASH, the movie or the TV series. Like, it wouldn't work. I know there was a series like After MASH, and that kind of makes sense, like what happened after it would.
Well, they made the Korean War last 10 fucking years.
Yeah, I don't think they were prepared for the success that show got. They sort of had to. Well, no, the Korean War's still going because this is only like a few months. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you should touch the Back to the Future movies anytime soon. I really don't. Like, I really don't. I think that they're too hard to leave alone. Like, I don't think like if I heard a Back to the Future reboot tomorrow, I think I'd have a problem with it. I think
I would argue, not to start a debate or anything, but I think with the mentality of where we are in technology and where we are as like a civilization of futurists, I think remaking Back to the Future, or at least making another one right now, could be a really good film and have a lot of important social commentary. But I agree, because that film has just so much nostalgia for me that I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I think a straight up remake wouldn't work because the problem with the first one is it is so 1980s. The sequel's not so much. There's a remake I wouldn't mind seeing, and that's Sink the Bismarck, because I don't know when the heck that movie was made. I think it was made I've got a copy of it. It's in black and white, and I'm surprised that hasn't been made. And there's a story there. It makes sense. It's not going to be hard to do. I'm surprised that there hasn't been a remake of that, because it's so out there. But there's other things I'm sure I could think of if I weren't sitting here, if I was given time to think about them. But
don't reboot documentaries. I don't think that would work.
No, I think no, it's not a documentary. It's a straight up film. It was really cool. I think a remake of that works. I think rebooting The Matrix might work too.
I would advise against that.
They kind of did that in the last one.
Don't reboot Breaking Bad.
Well, they're making a spin-off, so I guess that works.
Don't make a spin-off of Brave. There's like a Mexican version, I think.
Really?
Yeah, of the show now.
I
mean, that's a different
Is it already
beast.
started airing? Are they still filming it?
I don't know.
Don't remake Buffy or Angel.
Well, there was talk about that at one stage, I know that. And Joss Whedon was like, no.
Yeah, they shut it down really quick. Although, I guess just to touch on that really quickly. After you had Buffy, you had Veronica Mars, and now you have a Veronica Mars movie. There's no need to remake that series because that archetype and that relatability isn't going anywhere for a while.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind delving into that Veronica Mars at some point.
Oh, it's a great show.
Yeah, if I really like it, I'll probably come up here with you guys and talk about it. Is there anything else you guys think we haven't touched on or we should talk about before?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Well, Steve is taking the show next time, and what are we talking about then, Steve?
I think we already agreed on this, but Terminator, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just Terminator as a franchise.
Yeah. I've got a lot of work to do to prepare for that, because I am so far behind. But we will be back next month with that. stay tuned for the commentary that's coming up soon on the Man from Snowy River, because it'll be me, Alex, and a special guest that's not Steve. Sorry. And it's not anyone that well, I wouldn't say you heard of, but you might have heard this person, but they will be joining us, and I will have to let you wait and dwell on that. But not too long after that, I think will be the Condor Man commentary. Me and Alex will be doing that. There's going to be the next episode of the Aussie Canuck podcast, which is on Man from Snowy River. So there's quite a lot to be excited about and enjoy about the channel, because lots coming up. And well, I better get off here before my friend Mira Magpie comes and shuts down the show. But yeah, so guys, thank you for coming, and meeting adjourned, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We should get a gavel.
Yep, we should definitely get a gavel.
Well, that was a good CFG. What's that you got? Oh, this is your next mission. X-Men Origins Wolverine. Well, I don't really hate it. I guess a lot of people do, but I don't really hate it. Oh no, I'm not expecting you to review it. I want you to do a commentary on it with one of your friends. I couldn't do that to them. I mean, this is like unleashing a plague upon them. You will do it, or else you will die. I will try.